Good afternoon. Thank you for joining this seminar organized by the Malta Enterprise, which is the governmental arm to facilitate and promote foreign investment in Malta, and Chetcuti Cauchi Advocates, an international firm with offices in Malta, Cyprus, London, Zurich, and Hong Kong, assisting clients with legal, tax, and corporate matters. Together with me, Marion Zammit, representing Malta Enterprise and working in investment promotion. The way we structured this webinar is that firstly, Marion will go through a presentation outlining Malta and also the role of Malta Enterprise in attracting foreign investment to Malta. We will then go to my presentation, which will outline more the legal and the fiscal aspect. And ultimately, we will go also into details of the incentives that might be applicable, especially to the pharmaceutical industry. During this webinar, we will also have polls, and there is also a brochure which you can download at any time for your peruse. In fact, our team is going to launch the first poll before we start, so that we also hear your opinion on certain matters. The first question we have today is, what are the main defining factors when looking for an alternative jurisdiction for your business? Collaboration with the EU on the regulation of medicines, access to funding and EU collaboration for medical research, and access to the EU market. I would appreciate if you participate in this poll. We will give you 30 seconds to answer this. Thank you. We will start off with this presentation. Marion, please, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Marion Zammit from Malta Enterprise. As Dr. Silvana here well introduced me, our role in investment promotion is to attract foreign direct investment into Malta. And as such, we both attract investment into Malta as well as support the investment throughout the setting up period and its growth and expansion in Malta into a successful business. I will now go through a rather short presentation which shows what is going on in Malta in our business scenario and in our economy. It gives a brief overview of all the sectors that are thriving in Malta, and I will go into some specific detail when it comes to the pharma and life sciences sector. So Malta is an island in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. I'm sure that most of you know the location where Malta is placed. Our location is very strategic because we are in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, right between the African and the European continent, and at the confluence of two major naval routes. That is the route from the Strait of Gibraltar as well as the Suez Canal. This means what it implies for business is that when considering Malta as a location for doing business, Malta has to be seen as a platform from where you can develop both the North African markets, the Middle East, as well as the European markets. Some facts and figures. Most importantly, the key thing to notice here is that Malta is rather small, and this has various implications when it comes to doing business. First and foremost, in Malta, most FDI all FDI has to be export-oriented. The Maltese market with 500,000 persons is too small to render any operation viable. And further to that, being small means that we can be very nimble, very efficient, and very lean. Therefore, our processes are very efficient and can happen in a very short time. It is very interesting to note that since, as you might well be aware of, Malta is a Commonwealth country and was an English colony for over 200 years, our systems are very much based on what are the British systems. So when it comes to our legal system, our education system, as well as our health system, most importantly, these are very much based on what is the British model. Further to that, English is one of our national languages. All Maltese citizens can speak English. All business is conducted in English, and our business documents and our legislation are all written in English. This obviously means that if you are considering a co-location or an expansion into our in Malta, this is something that will confer ease of doing business. Some other important things to note, that Malta acceded the EU as a full member in 2004, and we have adopted the euro as an official currency since 2008. The major industries in Malta are as shown in this slide. Not all of these sectors fall within the remit of Malta Enterprise, but obviously pharmaceutical and life sciences are one very important sector that fall within our remit that we continuously are looking into expanding and supporting, both through our initiatives as well as through facilitating and establishing key relationships in order for such businesses to thrive in Malta. Some important financial indicators indicating that Malta is a very stable economy. In fact, year after year, we have been registering growth, and unemployment has continued to decrease. This is obviously very important because for anyone who is considering opening a business in Malta, the fact that there is this financial and political stability means that any forecast or projections that you make are going to be stable and sound, because policies do not change from one day to another or from one year to another. So this political stability and financial security is something that you have to consider when thinking about Malta as a jurisdiction for your business. As we start looking into the sectors one by one, advanced manufacturing is one key sector of importance for us. In fact, manufacturing, including even pharmaceutical manufacturing, comprise up to 20% of the contribution to our GDP. This means that whilst you may associate Malta with, for instance, tourism, in reality, advanced manufacturing is one of the pillars and mainstays of our economy. And manufacturing in Malta is a very diversified form of manufacturing. Obviously, because we are an island, it makes a lot of sense to manufacture very small products, that is, very small units which occupy a very small volume, but have a very high value. And this is what the 200 foreign direct investing companies into Malta are actually doing. So in Malta, you get a range of products which range from components to final products to packaging products, which take very small volumes in order to keep shipping costs low, but are very high value added products, and into which a lot of expertise and technical skills are required in order to produce. So if we look at some examples, for instance, in Malta, we have ST Microelectronics, which is one of the semiconductor giants in the world. ST Microelectronics is a French, Italian, American investment, and in Malta they produce chips, that is, semiconductors. These semiconductors, at the end of the day, end up going into various products, such as mobile phones, such as automotive, such as computers, in anything that requires a chip, basically. We also have the toy manufacturing, Playmobil, which I'm sure that you are all familiar with. What few of the persons in the world would know is that in Malta, Playmobil have a manufacturing site which employs over 1,300 persons. Another very interesting fact is that Malta is actually a center for worldwide currency production. In fact, in Malta, we actually print more than 70% of the world's currencies through Crane Corporation and De La Rue, which are two major players in the currency printing sector. Another very important company, just to give some example, is Tulip Products, who produce the packaging for cosmetics for such companies as Chanel, Dior, Guerlain. So this goes to show the very high quality of a product manufactured in Malta. In fact, the Made in Malta mark is a very sought after label because it is synonymous with a product of great quality. Life sciences, which is also linked to manufacturing, is another sector where we're giving a lot of importance and support. It is very important to note that in Malta there is a very strong pharmaceutical manufacturing cluster. We have over 16 manufacturers. Most of them are generic manufacturers and contract manufacturers. And in Malta, we are producing products along all the value-added chain of pharmaceuticals. So you will find companies like the Spanish Medicam and Combinopharm who are producing active pharmaceutical ingredient in Malta. You will find others who are producing solid oral dose tablets and capsules. There is also an Italian company who is producing steriles. And there are other companies who have adopted a different model in Malta. As the patent advantage in Malta has decreased in importance, various companies from third countries, that is, companies outside of Europe, are using Malta as a gateway into the EU. In fact, we have various Indian companies, for instance, who are using Malta either as a packaging test and batch release site or as a place for testing and batch release, like Aurobindo, for instance, who are now also expanding into oncological products, as well as companies like Alvogen, who are doing only the batch release in Malta. So basically, they receive all the results from testing from their manufacturing arms. And in Malta, they have reviewers who are constantly reviewing the results and releasing products into the EU market. It is very important to note here that in Malta, we have a very highly reputed medicines authority. In fact, our medicines authority is a very important authority when it comes to registration of medicines, when it comes to performing EU GMP inspections, dossier building, and providing medical advice. One very important thing when it comes to our medicines authority is that our medicines authority is one of the 6 authorities in the EU which are also acknowledged by the FDA. This means that a license and an inspection from the Malta Medicines Authority can confer both access to both EU and American markets, and obviously this is of a great advantage. Also important in Malta, other than just manufacturing of pharmaceuticals, we also have a very important life sciences sector. We have a life sciences park where companies who are operating in this business are located. And it is also interesting to note that Malta has just enacted legislation regulating the production of medical cannabis products in June last year. and has been very successful. We have been very successful in attracting production companies who are leaders in the medical cannabis sector, who will soon be starting their operations from Malta, and we are building this ecosystem around the medical cannabis scenario as well. This is in a nutshell what is happening in the life sciences and pharma sector. Obviously, if you have more questions about this sector after the presentations, we are more than happy to assist you and get you in touch also with our medicines authority should you require any services thereof. Other important sectors include information technology. In fact, Malta is actually now renowned for being the blockchain island. We have been early adopters as well in this sector, and it is a very strong sector which is supported very much by Malta Enterprise. Aviation is another very important sector. In fact, when it comes to aviation, Malta houses two very large MRO operations, namely that by Lufthansa and SRT. Both operators are expanding in Malta, but we also have other important activities such as training, UAV testing, aircraft registration, and other important services. Even linked to life sciences, we are currently managing to attract universities and other academic institutions to set up their campus in Malta. In fact, here it's worth to mention Barts University from Queen Mary University, who have established their campus in Gozo and who are offering degree courses for the future medical healthcare professionals. Financial services is also a strong sector in Malta, albeit not one which falls within the remit of Malta Enterprise. In Malta, financial services are regulated by the MFSA, but it's worth pointing out that this is one of our key sectors. So just to summarize, these are amongst our growth sectors in Malta: logistics, healthcare, including life sciences and pharma, aviation, as well as the technology sectors. These are some of our end users, as I have mentioned before. For instance, our components and our products from manufacturing end up as being components in very important products, such as mobile phones, such as automotive or cosmetics, and Airbus and Bombardier and Boeing, for instance, are some of the customers of our MROs. Finally, Malta Enterprise, and we will go into much more detail later on, offers a variety of support measures which help your business both to set up in Malta as well as to grow in Malta. But other than just the financial incentives, what we offer is actually a consultancy service, because we will grow our relationship with yourself and your business as it sets up and thrives in Malta, and we will assist you throughout the way together with your personal advisors. Further to that, some advantages of setting up your business in Malta: the economic and political stability and the financial security, which I have mentioned before, our strategic location, the fact that there exist highly skilled and English-speaking human resources, as well as the support and the incentives offered by Malta Enterprise. I will now leave you to my partner in this webinar to continue with this presentation.
Thank you, Marion. Now the next part deals with the more legal and fiscal aspects of doing business in and from Malta. I will touch upon some of the points that actually Marion mentioned, but again, looking at it from a legal perspective. Before moving on to that, we are going to launch our second poll in this webinar. The question is, how can Malta best offer a key post-Brexit solution for you? A base for access to the EU market, a legal framework for the medical cannabis industry, utilizing the services of the Malta Medicines Authority. We will now allow 30 seconds for you to answer to that poll and start off with the second part of this webinar. Thank you for participating in our poll. Next, we move to the second part of this presentation. This is a snapshot of what our firm does and how we assist our clients. We are basically a commercial and business firm assisting clients with international business and to set up in Malta and abroad for international reach. We assist from the mergers, acquisitions, and company setup point of view. We also have a specialized tax practice that looks at international planning. We, from a practical point of view, businesses relocate to different places, and our global citizenship and residency team assists with relocation permits and all the formalities required from that point of view. International property investment, if our clients are looking for personal property or business property, and also international banking and wealth, assisting clients with finance and the fiscal aspects of their business. Let's have generally a look at the implications of a no Brexit deal and how this would impact the pharma industry. Of course, being a member of the European Union, you are part of the acquis communautaire and also benefit from access to the single market, which allows people, goods and services to freely move across the member states. The UK's ties with the EU would potentially be immediately dissolved following a no-deal Brexit, making the UK subject to tariffs on goods and additional border checks on UK citizens. The uncertainty is a problem for the pharmaceutical industries. We have been discussing with our clients in the sector, and the development of drugs and other products depend heavily on the political and regulatory conditions of a country and often require planning years in advance, and therefore this situation is a worrying situation for a lot of the pharmaceutical players that are currently operating from the UK. Indeed, the pharmaceutical and life sciences industry may be affected in a broad range of areas, from product development to market approval and to also shipping their medicines and medical devices around the European Union. From a regulations point of view, under current EU laws, authorizations for pharmaceutical products must be located in the European Union, and regulatory procedures such as quality control and pharmacovigilance must be carried out at the sites in the EEA. Therefore, this means that on Brexit, it may mean that market authorization for medicines held by UK companies are no longer valid, and therefore legal supplies of medicines in the EU might be impaired. Also, product licenses and sites for testing and certification would also be affected, and what we're seeing is a move out of the UK to other territories of the EEA. There are other, from the discussions with clients, we have seen that there are other aspects that may be affected in a Brexit situation. There is no automatic access for UK entities to EU's research and innovation programs, such as the Horizon 2020. Brexit may result in an end to cooperation with the EU on matters of European pharmacovigilance, BV, and future medical device databases. There is also loss of access to the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control, the ECDC. Malta in this situation might provide a solution. Malta is a full member state of the EU since 2004, and therefore market authorizations for pharmaceutical products can be obtained and are valid for the whole EU. There is removal of that pharma product, and important distributor licenses and manufacturer licenses can be obtained from Malta, being a new member. Therefore, in that case, also providing for recognition in the whole EU. However, these characteristics are characteristics that we see in every EU member state. So every EU member state would give this disadvantage. What makes Malta special vis-a-vis other EU members? Why would an investor, why would someone looking to relocate or find a base for a business look at Malta and not at other EU member states? We have a low and effective corporate tax when compared to the other European member states. As Mario mentioned, there are tax incentives offered through Malta Enterprise, and we will go into the details of how these incentives work later on in this presentation. We have also a well-developed telecommunications infrastructure. We have an approachable authority in the sense that, being small and being a country that looks at attracting business, when a prospective business looking at moving to Malta contacts the authority, or there you find a listening ear. You find an authority that is open to listen and to license the business, of course, within the parameters of the laws, both Maltese and the EU laws that we operate in. Comparatively, when compared to other European jurisdictions, fees and costs are quite competitive, both for service provisions, so for the service providers that a company would need or a business would need to set up, and also from the regulatory point of view. And of course, the recognition in the EU is the result of the process that you would do in Malta. A specific slide on connectivity and logistics. As Marion was pointing out, Malta is at the center of the Mediterranean, between the edge of two continents. We have the second best airport in Europe with over 4 million passengers a year. Our free port is the third largest in the Mediterranean, and there is efficient and regular mail and courier services, which of course are a source of advantages for our clients. In fact, when discussing with our clients, we have noticed that these result in a number of advantages, including that there is no need for large stock keeping when you are operating here because of the good connectivity. There is efficient delivery of parts and supplies for productions, and also cost-effective delivery because of the location of Malta. To help you decide why Malta and not other jurisdictions, in the next slide, we are presenting a comparison between Malta and a number of other countries, including Cyprus, the UK, Ireland, and Gibraltar. There's a mix of EU and non-EU countries there, and there are a number of features that usually are looked at when one is considering and weighing which countries to look at to invest or to start up there. It gives an overview of political stability. Malta ranks 10, and it's a good ranking when compared to the other countries. The global competitiveness is ranked 36. We have been part of the Eurozone since 2008. The time to establish a company in Malta is 24 hours, and we will go a bit in more detail of what are the requirements to establish a company in Malta and how that is undertaken in the next slides. The minimum share capital is 1,165 euros approximately, and for a private company and for a public company it is around 46,500 euros. The standard corporate tax in Malta is 35%, but we'll look into more detail how, in effect, this is a 5% after a process of refunds to which the shareholders may be entitled. We have double taxation treaties with countries of over 75 countries, and our VAT rate is at 18% when compared to 19 in Cyprus, 20 in the UK, and 23 in Ireland. We have traditionally a lot of links with the UK. We are an ex-colony of the UK, and just as the British, we like drinking tea and biscuits, but not only. We also have an English common law tradition. Our law is based on continental and common law, and our procedural law is principally based on English common law. Also, the most recent areas of law are based on English law, including our Companies Act and our Trusts Law, which are very important for businesses when setting up. Our official language is English. We are members of the Commonwealth, and there are a number of bilateral trade and investment treaties as well in place. This is an overview of what we do and how we assist our clients with a company set up in Malta or a business set up in Malta. We start off with the corporate and tax planning and preparation of legal documentation. There is also a practical assistance from a relocation point of view. In the case of pharmaceutical companies, we assist with the process with the Medicines Authority and the acquisition of relevant licenses, and correspondence with the relevant authorities, the Registry of Companies, Malta Financial Services Authority, depending on what type of activity the client is meaning to set up. We try to also help from a practical point of view. So if the client is looking to rent or purchase commercial properties or to set up a JV, we, in principle, project manage together with the client the whole process of setting up here to make it as easy as possible and to get to the end result of having an operation here. Specifically, advantages that Malta might offer in the pharmaceutical industries and particularly related to intellectual property. There's a border exemption that can be availed of, which basically allows some preparatory work to be done before a patent has expired, and which allows, therefore, a pharmaceutical company to start some experiments or do some acts to prepare for going into the market on a patent that is held by others. As soon as the patent expires, therefore, the company that has made this preparatory work has an opportunity of faster access to the market. Malta became a member of the Patent Cooperation Treaty and the European Patent Convention in 2007, so considerably quite recent. Before that, very few patents were filed in Malta. Malta, therefore, currently enjoys a situation in which patents that are active in many other countries do not exist in Malta. So if there were patents registered before 2007, they are still active till to date because of the 20-year period, but they are not active in Malta. Therefore, this has been seen as an opportunity for pharmaceutical companies to manufacture and sell products before competitors located in countries covered by active patents. Again, going back to the approachability of the authorities, we have an approachable register, patent register. It is also relatively small when compared to other patent registers in the EU, and there is an opportunity of registering patents here, and the process might be slightly faster because of the size of the register, and therefore use the Malta patent registration as the first step, and then claiming priority for that registration in other jurisdictions. And therefore, here we're looking at the time sensitiveness of patent registrations. The next few slides take us to the fiscal and the tax implications of having a business in Malta. This is what I call the slides of the no-nos, but these are the no-nos that we like. There are no withholding taxes on dividends, interest, and royalties in Malta, no capital wealth taxes, no entry-exit tax on shift of residence and domicile, and no dividend taxes. Let's look a bit into detail of how corporate tax is charged in Malta and what is the effective tax that a company setting up in Malta would pay. This is a typical structure. You have a trading company, which could be our pharmaceutical company producing pharmaceuticals here in Malta. The company the trading company, the operational company, is taxed at 35% on its net profit, on its net income. So when at the end of the year the profit and loss and balance sheet of the company are set up, the company would be obliged to pay 35% on its net profit to the Inland Revenue Department in Malta. Depending on the domicile and residency of the shareholder, there is the possibility of a refund of 30 of the 35% paid by the company on the distribution of dividends. So whilst the company pays 35% in corporate tax, there is the distribution of dividends received by the shareholder. Depending on the domicile and residency status of the shareholder, he would be entitled to a refund of 30, which means that 95% of the original profit is in the hands of the shareholder. And there is a net effective tax of 5%. This is a similar structure, this time introducing a holding company in this structure. We have the same situation, the same scenario. There is the business part here and the asset part at the top. There is the operational company that would pay 35% on its net profit. Dividends are distributed this time to the holding company, being the direct shareholder of the trading company underneath. The holding company on distribution of dividends will be entitled to a refund of 30, and in this scenario, the 95% is accumulated at the holding company level, having a net effective tax of 5%. In this case, the shareholder at the top of the structure has more control in that he is receiving 95% of the original profits in the operational company in the holding company. And through the holding company, then the holding company can reinvest in the company, in the trading company, have other investments, and also distribute dividends to the shareholder. In this scenario, the dividend and the refund are received as a dividend, complete dividend in the hands of the shareholder, and on receipt of dividends and refund at the holding company level, there is no further tax in Malta. This slide summarizes what we have been discussing. The company pays a corporate tax, a headline corporate tax of 35%. there are refunds of 30 to the shareholders, depending on their domicile and residency, and the result is that there is a 5% net effective tax. There is a possibility to include foundations and trusts in the structure. As I was explaining before, we have a common law tradition and we have inherited the trust structure from the English. Our systems are compliant with EU law, and being part of the EU, we are also part of the VAT system and EU VAT for tax-free trading with EU suppliers when there is intra-EU exchange of supplies. And there is the benefit from EU trade agreements. In the next part, Marion will explain the incentives that Malta Enterprise offers in more details.
So it's me again. I will go briefly into the incentives rather than going through all the details of the incentives offered by Malta Enterprise. I can start by saying that we offer 3 types of incentives. First and foremost, if you are considering setting up a manufacturing concern in Malta, Malta Enterprise helps and supports companies with the allocation of industrial land. So should anyone start a manufacturing concern, what you would need to do is apply with Malta Enterprise for allocation of industrial government land. Government, through Malta Industrial Parks, allocates land at a very competitive rental rate or lease rate that you can avail of in order to build your factory, construct your premises upon. Further to this, Malta Enterprise has fiscal and financial incentives. So assuming that, as my colleague and partner in this webinar has been saying, Dr. Silvana, in Malta you can avail of an ultimate 5% tax rate through the reimbursement system. Nonetheless, once you decide to invest, to partake capital investment, you can be reimbursed a percentage of that capital investment as a tax credit. The percentage varies from 10 to 30% depending whether your enterprise classifies as a small, medium or large, and depending on this classification you can be reimbursed a substantial amount of the capital investment as a tax credit. These tax vouchers, so to speak, do not have an expiry date and can be used to pay the 5% tax. This obviously implies that possibly for a number of years, depending on how much profit you will be making in Malta, you can actually operate tax-free. Further to this, Malta Enterprise also supports with financial incentives. That is, we help you finance part of the capital investment, and this can take place through a soft loan, which is managed by Malta Enterprise, or an interest rate subsidy on the interest rate that the private institution, that is the bank, will offer to you, or a loan guarantee. Obviously, if Malta Enterprise provides a loan guarantee, it is the bank will obviously see the investment as a lower risk, and therefore you will be able to not only get the loan, but obviously be able to negotiate a competitive You discuss the business idea with us. We help you develop the business idea, and together we will identify which are the incentives that apply to that particular case, and support you with helping you out with filling in the right applications in order to avail of our incentives. I think we have come to the end of this webinar. We thank you for your attention and participation. And now it's the time that if you would like to share some questions and queries with us, please put them forward and we will help you and support you with these questions.
Yes, Marion, and while we wait for some questions to come in, it's important to point out that with this presentation, we scratched the surface in reality.
Exactly.
There is a lot of detail, and as Marion was explaining, most of the time we have to speak to the client, look at what he has in mind, and Malta Enterprise from their part will assist with outlining the best incentives for the client's intentions, and from our end we will then tailor make the structure and the tax planning and the relocation, if necessary, of the project. We have received a question, which is a good question. It is asking, in practice, what will happen if I want to set up in Malta? Of course, what we described here is a general picture. So in practice, the attendee is questioning, in practice, where do I start, Marion?
So we suggest that you start with a phone call or an email to myself or to any one of my colleagues at Malta Enterprise. At the end of this presentation, I believe there is my email address available. So please just forward us an email. We will organize a call or a meeting. We can organize the meeting here in Malta. We can also come to meet you in the UK or wherever you are located. We will come for an initial meeting. We will understand what your business requirements are and what your business idea is. And we will, as I have said before, indicate the best way forward. That is, which incentives apply to your case and how to structure your business plan. We will also suggest that you also talk to our partners in helping you set up the company, and here I leave it to Dr. Silvana to continue with.
Yes, generally we look at the project from a legal and fiscal point of view, in the sense that we will discuss with the client and understand what the client wants to set up here, and suggest the best corporate structure. It might involve a company, it might involve a trust, it might involve other types of entities in Malta. It also relates to the tax planning to make sure that the client is tax efficient and fulfilling all the requirements according to law. There is also assistance from an authorization point of view if required, and from structuring the client from a legal point of view on the basis of contractual arrangements, whether with business partners or clients or providers. So we will ensure that those dealings are being done according to Maltese law and also protect the rights of the client.
In the case of pharma specifically and life sciences, we can also help you get in touch with the Medicines Authority. We can organize an initial phone call with the Medicines Authority or a meeting with the Medicines Authority in order to understand your specific requirements, and we can take it from there.
I have another question, and mainly they are asking whether there are limitations from a setting up point of view on the nationality of the directors and the shareholders of the companies. No, there are no limitations. So as long as the persons are passed through the fit and proper test required by the authorities, then no, there are no limitations on the nationality of either the directors or shareholders or other officers of the company. Very good. I think we have come to an end to this webinar. Thank you very much for listening, and please feel free to contact us if you want any clarifications or information. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Thank you.